Welcome to the channel, guys. My name is Jess. So it is Monday here in Australia, and we all know what that means. It is time to take a look at Bitcoin's recent weekly candle close. As the price action gets closer and closer to chopping its way off the edge of a cliff, we're going to dive into the charts today and talk about what's going to signal a macro reversal on the weekly and the 3-day charts, including everything that you need to be watching out for. Before we jump in, make sure you guys smash that like button and subscribe to the channel to get regular Bitcoin analysis every Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday. If you're after even more content, be sure to check out my free Telegram channel. And if you're interested in my VIP channel, you can get more details over here. VIP gives you exclusive access to my personal trading setups with exact entry points, targets, and stop losses. So taking a look at our weekly time frame here, let's talk about our most recent weekly candle close here for Bitcoin. This quite large red candle over here, ranging all the way up from $102.5 thousand, where we saw that rally earlier on in the week, and then the crash in the middle of the week all the way down to 91,000, the base of our weekly range over here. So this candle, as you guys can see, is quite indecisive. We have a very, very even upper wick and lower wick, and is very reminiscent to a rickshaw doji, where we have equal wicks to the top and bottom, and a very, very small body in the middle of the candle. So a rickshaw doji essentially represents a balance between the buyers and the sellers. And so essentially, while we consolidate between these two levels on the weekly range, we reached a point where the strength of support at the base of our range and the strength of resistance nearing the top of our range has reached some sort of vague equilibrium, right? Neither party has been able to see a significant push to either side. And so while it is a pretty indecisive candle and it doesn't really represent, decisive, price action, it doesn't really signal a reversal or a continued bearish correction, it does kind of provide an opportunity in the price action where in seeing any sort of shift in the balance between these two parties can mark the early signs for either a high time frame reversal on this weekly chart, or the start of a continued bearish correction and a potential loss of our weekly range and movement into a macro bearish segment of price action. So we're going to talk about what's going to signal either of those scenarios or that shift in the balance between those buyers and sellers. And starting off with our bearish case scenario, that is, as I've mentioned just now, really, really simple, right? It's going to be the loss of the base of our weekly range at $91,000, particularly if we end up closing below sell side liquidity here at $89,000. That's going to signal the complete loss of that level of support and naturally a massive shift towards an increase in selling pressure, and thereby a movement into this huge volume gap that we have here on the weekly chart and into much lower levels of support. Now that weekly chart volume gap ends all the way down here at $72,000. So obviously we might not go all that far. There are many levels of support on the shorter time frame that may act as reversal points if Bitcoin sees that correction. But nevertheless, the loss of that weekly range would naturally signal the entrance into a much more macro bearish sort of territory. Now, if we look at it the same way in terms of the bullish case scenario, then naturally that's going to be a breakout from the top of our weekly range here, right, at $104.5 thousand, or the weekly candle close for that all-time high here at $108,000. That's going to signal, obviously, a macro break and then a movement most likely into prolonged price discovery. But as you guys can see, we're quite far away from that period of price action. We're sitting all the way down here at $96,000, and that is where that sort of weekly candle close has ended up printing. So what's going to be an earlier signal for that, and that we're going to see, that move, or they're very likely to see that move towards that range high, and that move is likely to result in that breakout. So one of the things that we're looking for here to signal that preemptively is over here on the weekly time frame RSI. So taking a look here, we can see we have a downtrending period of momentum, right, where we've printed continuous lower highs on momentum, despite that sort of deviation high here from the actual price action itself when Bitcoin touched $110,000, right? And so we need to see that momentum shifted on the weekly chart to actually signal that break. If we take a look at a previous example of prolonged consolidation here on the weekly time frame, we can see that break of the RSI here on the weekly time frame through this candlestick right here eventually led to a movement above this macro descending channel structure, breaking out of that structure, and then moving into a massive period of really bullish price action and actually price discovery for that period of time, where we went to the new all-time high, currently sitting at $108,000 to $110,000. Now, of course, RSI is only one indicator, and there's only so much one indicator can tell us without conjunctive information. But what we can also see here in this bounce was that following the print of this weekly candle close over here, where we, in a similar nature to the current weekly candle close, had an equal upper wick and lower wick and a small body in the middle, we also in this candle went on to retest a couple levels of really crucial support. We had structural support in the macro descending channel. We had horizontal support here at $51,000 to $54,000, as well as our dynamic support on the 50-week moving average, right? So essentially a loss of any of those would have sent Bitcoin into a really high time frame macro bearish trajectory, right? Particularly again closing below sell-side liquidity. So it was between a rock and a hard place. We either saw this bounce here or we were going to go down for quite a prolonged period of time. And so seeing that test of support there, we were finally able to get a momentum shift that pushed Bitcoin's RSI above this trend line. And that eventually led on to the breakout of our structure. So if we apply that analysis to our current period of time, we can see Bitcoin has retested structural support at the base of our weekly range, as well as horizontal support. And we are very close to retesting that weekly RSI downtrend. Now, of course, there is a potential that we see another movement towards that base once again before the reversal, right? So this is potentially another 2 weeks before we touch or have contact with our RSI downtrend. But the signal for that macro reversal is coming very near. Bitcoin is very close to approaching that sort of cliff. The second thing that we're looking out for in terms of the early signs for a macro bullish breakout is over here on the 3-day chart, and you can see it by pulling up the Bollinger Bands indicator or this volatility indicator. So if we take a look once again at our prior period of prolonged consolidation, the way that we interacted with the Bollinger Bands, and particularly the middle of that, the moving average, or I think on the 3-day time frame, it should be like a 2-month moving average. What we did alongside bouncing on support and shifting RSI to the upside was also breaking above the top of the middle of the Bollinger Band and retaining that level as a base of support moving forward. That facilitated Bitcoin's sort of laddering behavior over here, right? Where first of all, we broke above our structural downtrend, we flipped this level to support, once again flipped to this level, the prior high in that downtrend, to a base of support. We had a deviation above, and then we retested that prior low as a base of support, flipped this next level to a base of support, and so on and so forth. That sort of laddering behavior where the prior lows become the next basis of support for the next move upwards, right? And that's exactly what we need to see Bitcoin do in this current segment of price action to signal the beginning of that macro bullish shift. So if we take a look at the midline of our Bollinger Bands here, it has essentially perfect confluence with the top of our daily chart range at $100,000. Now I'll talk about that in just a moment. But if we take a look on the 3-day chart, what we essentially need Bitcoin to do is to flip that 100K level, or this blue line on the Bollinger Bands, to a base of support, break above our structural downtrend that we have forming on that daily chart in this 3-day time frame, and push above those levels in those prior highs and flip them to base of support to facilitate that sort of laddering price action and push Bitcoin back up into macro price discovery. So the daily chart range, you guys can see it a lot better on the daily time frame, and it essentially ends at $100,000 and ranges all the way down to the weekly range low. And historically, every time we have managed to push above 100K and establish that as a base of support, we've seen these moves to the range high for the weekly range, right? Or to retest that sort of upper band of resistance at $108,000 to $110,000. And so in re-entering this daily chart range over here, that is where we sort of started to see consolidation between 100K and the base of that at $91,000. So that is a wrap on the high time frame analysis. There's definitely lots to be watching out for on the weekly charts and the 3-day time frames to signal that shift between the buyers and sellers after we print such an indecisive candle. Now let's move over onto the short time frame. What is the short time frame telling us right now? What has the price action been immediately following this close? Before we get into the rest of the video, guys, let's hear a quick word from our sponsor, BTC. We can get 15% off all of your trading fees and up to $5,500 in sign-up rewards when you create your free account using the link down in my description box. BTC is an emerging cryptocurrency exchange committed to providing you with a secure, convenient, and highly functional trading and investment platform. Available across all countries as a non-KYC exchange, get global access to over 150 trading pairs with minimal fees on both spot and futures contracts. Join today to get $5,500 in sign-up rewards and get 15% off all of your trading fees by signing up using the link in my bio or by using the code 1GG3 when you create your account. So the short time frame price action, as you guys can see from this chart, has been honestly really choppy. In fact, this morning we had news come out from America about more tariffs, or tariffs, however you pronounce them, particularly I think on steel and aluminum. How do you guys say it in America? Aluminum? Yeah, so that sent the market reeling naturally, and so we dropped below what was previously a parallel channel structure over here with a base of support at $96,000. Dropped below that, fell below sales liquidity at $95,000, and went on to create what could potentially become the base of the trend line, or the base trend line for a short time frame, a descending triangle structure, right? So as you guys might know, descending triangles are bullish structures. They are consolidation structures of accumulation, right? Particularly entered into from a uptrend, or, you know, in this case scenario, the bottom side up. Entrance into that sort of descending triangle structure generally results in a bullish breakout and a continuation of that prior trajectory, right? Which in this case, bottom side up, hence a bullish break. So this structure over here essentially maps out what we need to see on the short time frame to signal that Bitcoin has flipped the short time frame charts to a bullish narrative, right? Currently we are bearish, we're in a downtrend, and we are losing levels of support, right? So what we need to see to flip these charts from being bearish to bullish is, of course, first of all, a break of the structural trend line, also flipping our 200 EMA here on the hourly chart. That should signal then a move to retest the prior high in our downtrend at $100,000, the top of our daily chart range over here, and then a move up to retest the range high for our descending triangle structure, as well as the higher time frame downtrend that we have here on the daily and 12-hour time frame charts. So the measured move of our descending triangle structure is generally from the top of the structure, right, all the way down to that lower trend line. So let me just extend that trend line. And that roughly, if we apply it to the breakout point, let's say over here, takes us to retest that trend line, push above the range high for the structure, and go to about $103.6 thousand. Now it also gives us the, I guess, distinctive signals for the bearish case scenario, continued bearish case scenario on the short time frame. That being, first of all, a loss of this lower trend line, so closing below that trend line and creating a new low below this prior wick here at 94.7 thousand. Now that's going to send the price to the next base of available support here, also mapped out on the Smart Money Concepts indicator, ranging from $94,000 to $93,000. Now that is the final level of support that we have on the short time frame before Bitcoin is likely then to see another tumble down to the base of the range here at $91,000, right? If we zoom out a little bit, even on the hourly chart, we can see that level of support marked out over here. Alrighty guys, that is all the analysis that I have for you today. If you enjoyed the video or you learned something, don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe to the channel. If you're after even more content, be sure to check out my free Telegram for daily updates as well as crypto and economic news. And if you're interested in my VIP channel, you can get more details over here. VIP gives you exclusive access to my personal trading setups with exact entry points, targets, and stop losses. And if you are a trader, don't forget to sign up down below to BTC to get 15% off all of your trading fees. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye!